ask
Okay,
your question. And you can ask anything.
Anything.
You cannot offend me.
Okay. Do you think that the educational way in Israel, say more specific in settlements, what's so-called mitzvah, the religious school?
Religious schools.
Yeah,
okay,
religious school. Do you think it's teaching horrible stuff that can plant some bad ideas inside the kids? Yeah.
I don't know, actually, because I'm not from a settlement, and even though my son is in school in Tel Aviv, we send him to like freaky schools, so like liberal schools. Okay, so I do know that the Ministry of Education guides what you're allowed to learn and what you don't learn. You know, they have guidelines and a list of books, and teachers get to decide from that list what they can teach. But they have to teach those, something on that list. That list can be, depending on who's in government, can be a little bit more right-wing and ignore the Palestinians completely. If it was a left-wing government, as it was, I think under Rabin, there was more about Palestinians. My understanding is they're kind of ignored. Palestinians in general are just ignored. They're just sort of like they don't exist. In general, and then I would say is probably much more apparent since the 2000 Intifada. Okay. Other than the impact that Palestinians have on Israelis of violence and terrorism. Other than that, I'm saying as a people. And I'm kind of half guessing, so don't quote me on all this stuff. My son, on the other hand, who goes to one of these liberal schools, so it really depends on who your teacher is. So my son has a liberal teacher, and they talk about occupation, they talk about what the Palestinian people are. I don't know how much they go into, or will go into, the history of the Palestinian people, even how much they know, because chances are they don't know very much. The people who teach, but there are in the education system, there are a lot of teachers who tend to be kind of left-wing, meaning they tend to be much more open to the Palestinian narrative and sympathize with the Palestinians, and they will try to bring that into the classroom. In a settlement, I would assume unlikely it's going to happen, but I don't think they necessarily will teach hate. No, it's not part of most, I can't say all, but most Israeli culture. Israelis like to think of themselves, at least that way, that it's not part of Judaism, it's not part of Israeli culture. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because it totally does, because people use religion to, there's been a few, major religious figures who've said the most ridiculous things about, Muslims or non-Jews, as just, I don't know what they're doing, they're trying to understand the situation, I'm not even sure. And I do know that people who are religious and settlers refer to Palestinians, some refer to them as Palestinians, some refer to them as Ishmaelites, Ishmael from the Bible, as if we're living in biblical times and we are Jacob's children, and they are Ishmael, and then there's that rivalry between Ishmael and, so they'll call Muslims Ishmaelites. Teaching, I don't think you even need to teach hate. I think the subtlety of media, of showing Palestinian violence and terrorism, of only showing that, not showing anything normal about Palestinian society, puts in the minds of children, no matter what they're learning, this idea of the enemy. I don't think you need it. My nephew, I remember, he's now 30-something. When he was 12, we had a discussion about hate, and he said, "What, you don't hate anyone?" And I said, "No." He goes, "You must hate Arabs." And I'm like, "No, I don't hate Arabs." And he comes from a very liberal family, which surprised me. They lived on a kibbutz, and they were always taught, and they had Palestinian friends, and not close, but they were very open-minded. But as a 12-year-old, what he absorbed was this idea of, no, you just hate Palestinians.
Not even ultra-Orthodox or something.
Not at all. They're very, very secular.
Secular.
Ate, I think they ate pork sometimes, like, well, at least the boys did, the girls didn't. And now today he's obviously doesn't think that way. But as a 12-year-old, I thought it was interesting how he absorbed the culture of hate and being an enemy without having anyone told him anything.